Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? The story is what the players did. This is a statement I heard for the first time, I think, 2010, and I think Michael Mornard actually typed it. And probably was in RPG Net forums. And the sentiment was, the thread had gone into, I forget exactly what the thread was, had gone into some discussion about, whether or not you wanted to have a game where there was a planned story arc, and you had a story because it was cool, or whether or not the story simply emerged. This is not the language they used, but the story emerged based on the actions of the characters. And of course, if you watch my videos, you know I fall into the latter camp. That's what I prefer. But that was the first time I heard it expressed in that manner. And so, yeah, I believe the story is what the players did. Certainly, I think Runeslinger might have said it in one of his videos recently, that, in the beginning, a lot of us really focus myopically on the player characters and what they do, and it's almost as if the rest of the world simply doesn't exist. And certainly, a lot of us can play that way now, where the entire game world is based on everything you plan for the players, the encounters. They're the most important thing in the world because everything else kind of vanishes and doesn't really exist. So that's not what I'm talking about. And actually, probably, I recall one of my the people that commented on one of my videos. I forget which one it is. I didn't have the time to go look it up, so forgive me if I don't mention your name. But I do appreciate all the people that comment on my videos, especially the people that don't agree with me, and you know who you are, because it keeps me on my toes and keeps me thinking. But they mentioned that, and I'm paraphrasing, that the real story, the stories are what goes on in the world. What the players do is kind of incidental. They mentioned that they don't tailor the world to suit the players. The players are simply actors in it, and I agree, wholeheartedly. I think we probably just were talking at cross purposes. To me, it's more. Actually, what summed it up the best, I think, was in the video by Emergent Play, and I'm forgetting the name of it. I think it's Everyone's a Hero. I did a video response to recently in troop style play. At one point, he mentioned, this little anecdote about an out-of-work actor who struggles to find work and finally gets the part of the ditch digger in Hamlet. So he goes home all excited to tell his wife that he's got a part in a play. And she says, "Oh, really? What's the play about?" And he goes, "Well, it's about a grave digger who meets a prince." Droll little story, but it drives home the point that, it's what the players do and their interactions. That's the story that's important to them. And I think that's the key point. To me, the favorite kind of world for me to run or for me to be a player in is a dynamic world where there are things going on that are happening independently of the players. And the players, come in and, the story becomes, at the group level, about what they do in the world, their interactions with this dynamic living world. They may never be a major player in the story. They may always be the ditch digger, or the one soldier during World War II or whatever. However, they may influence events so much that they become major players in that world, and then the greater world story is about them. But regardless of which way it goes, or whether it's somewhere in the middle, and most of them are somewhere in the middle, in my experience, the story that matters to the players and to the characters, so then the players by default, is the story that they participated in. 100 years from now, nobody's going to be reading the story of my life, I don't think, unless things change drastically. However, the story that matters to me and the people that care about me are what we did. Everything else is, interesting and affects our lives, but our story is our story. And by the same token, as I'm, playing the part of a character, or, characters as it were, depending on how I do it, engaging in a dynamic world, the story that matters to me, the story that we'll talk about as players years after the event, are what we did in that game world. Otherwise, we're not going to sit around and talk about what a great setting or a great story arc our DM had when behind this, while we were doing all these things behind the scenes, Nation X attacked Nation Y, and awakened some slumbering god, Z. maybe we'll talk about that a little bit, but we'll talk about what happened with us. That's the story. So, what do you think? What have your experiences been? Have a good one.